Good morning, everyone. Glad to see you. I see people are starting to come in and come into the room, and we want to get everybody involved in this conversation today. We got a friend of mine, Keith Grant, that's going to be on here. Excited to have him as part of the show. Also, we're going to pull in at the end of the show a couple of people who's going to give us some resources in terms of dealing with the COVID-19 and how even there's resources out there for you to pay your rent and also to really help your family out in terms of what you've been going through on this COVID pandemic. So please make sure that you're sharing this. I'm trying to share mine now. Facebook has made this difficult to share. So I'm going to sit here and kind of do it. I'm trying to figure this out. But y'all say hello to me as y'all coming in. Make sure you're saying hello. Say good morning to me. We're gonna give it two more seconds before we get more. Good morning, Miss Alzenia. Glad to see you here this morning. Please make sure that you always subscribe to the YouTube channel. Sit here at the bottom of the screen. Make sure that you're telling people about the show, and make sure that you are. Oh, I'm messing up. See, I'm messing up. I'm messing up, y'all. Make sure that you are. Getting people involved and watching Stronger and Better. Every week here, Thursdays at 11 o'clock. I don't know what I'm doing with my Facebook. That's why this is live, y'all. So I'm going to get out of here and do this. And then I'm going to go here and make sure that I'm sharing it to my other pages. Y'all make sure that you guys are sharing it also. Make sure that you are letting people know. Glad to see people coming in. Mr. Vita, happy belated birthday to you. Good to see you today. Hey, what's going on, Marla? Glad to have you on the show on today. Glad everybody's joining in. I'm still trying to share to a page. I don't know what I'm doing this morning. All right, here we go. I think I got it. All right, so just share. Make sure that you're sharing this morning. We're going to be talking about COVID-19 and what's going on. I'll have my friend again. I'm gonna bring him on real quick. Let's see here. What's going on, Keith? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm so glad to have with me on today, Mr. Keith Grant. He is one special person in terms of he's an AP RN and the Senior Systems Director of Infectious Prevention at the Hartford Hospital. Glad to have you with us, man.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, what you got going on, man.
so Keith Grant, Senior System Director for Infection Prevention, Hartford Healthcare. Also involved in infectious diseases, epidemiology, and antimicrobial stewardship and diagnostic stewardship as well. Also a part of the Governor's Scientific Advisory Committee. Still with the military, been there for 16 years
Yeah,
in the provider role. And definitely it's been probably the hardest journey in the last few months.
I would
Um,
imagine.
yeah, man, I can imagine
I would
so,
imagine.
in so many ways, right? I think it's been challenging for us, but I can imagine it's been very, very challenging for not being able to like get the information. I think as quickly as we're able to get it. So,
Yeah,
ignorance itself is just challenging. So,
yeah, and that's what we kind of want to talk about today, is just making sure that people getting a true message of what's going on with COVID-19, and in terms of what we should be looking for. And I guess I think the way to probably start this conversation is that a lot of people are really scared, and a lot of people are really don't know what to do about this vaccination that has come out. There's three different choices. They don't know what to pick, if they're going to pick one. And I've heard, especially in our Black and Brown communities, that they don't want to get the shot,
mhm.
and because of lack of knowledge. And so, if you can kind of share with us what we should be thinking, and what's surrounding this whole vaccination piece.
Yeah. So, you know, I'll give you. I'll start by where I hope we're gonna end with this
Yeah,
is the fact that even before the shot was really available, you had the richest people around the world that are lobbying to try to get this.
yeah,
So just put that into perspective, right?
Yeah.
There's individuals who pay individuals to um, understand this information and translate it to them. And their translation says basically this is very important and you need to get it.
Right.
So the vaccine itself, from an efficacy perspective, it speaks for itself. There's a significant decrease in mortality in nursing homes in different communities across the country with the vaccination. There's some reports of over 90% decrease in mortality. That's pretty significant. So there's nursing homes across the country, across the state, and I use nursing homes, and I'll tell you why I'm using nursing homes in a minute.
Yeah.
But even across the state, there's some nursing homes that have lost almost half their population through this pandemic. The
Wow.
primary reason I use nursing home because they have an innate comorbidity, which is age. So we've seen individuals that are at advanced age having the highest risk of death, also the highest risk of needing to get critical care with the disease process. And if you shift that, and some other groups that are very high risk is or African American minority population. So there's
Yeah.
significant data now supporting that. There's some hospitals or some clinical setting that it's a 7-to-1 ratio in the amount of people, African Americans, Black African Americans, and minorities that are in hospitals and are suffering from this disease process than our Caucasian colleagues. So there's a significant difference in the disparity of it, and the history of the disparity is something that we can talk about and how we fix that going forward.
Yeah.
So
Well, can we talk about that? Because
yeah,
it is something that that's troubling, that our people are at the highest risk in terms of a lot of these infections and
yeah.
within our community. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I mean, the primary reason for that, like in my opinion, one of the chief reason. One second. One of the primary reason for that is in my opinion is you have to prepare yourself for whatever battle that you could potentially come up against, and that's
Yeah.
from a spiritual perspective, you talk about that from a medical clinical perspective. So a healthier body does much better with this disease process. So we know that that's established. I think one of the things from a responsibility and accountability perspective, something we need to hold high, and individuals, the few of us that do this right, regular checkups with your provider, ensuring you have a viable PCP. If you see something, you don't just check it out when you're really you can't walk, or
Yeah.
can't eat, you can't cough, right? A friend of
Yeah.
mine saying some people don't go to the doctor unless they can't eat, they can't sleep,
Right.
they have problems peeing or problem pooping. That's it.
Right.
That needs to be fixed, right? Maintenance needs to happen. Same thing with your car, right? So that's one of the things. I don't think we do a good job in preventative maintenance clinically. We need to work very much harder on that. The other piece is putting time in educating yourself about yourself, right? One of the things that you see when you see patients and you'll ask them some simple questions, and one of the things that I will ask normally is like baseline questions, right? So ensure you understand what your baseline is. I know I eat twice a day. If you start eating once a day, just think about that. It's a concern, right? Small things
Right.
like
Right.
that.
Right. 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 Right.
The other thing is when we started this process, we talked about close proximity in living. So we looked at certain settings, multi-generational housing, and so forth.
Yeah.
Normally, predominantly African American minorities, right? And we also talked about like essential workers needing to be out there working. If you look at a lot of the essential workers, they fall into that class. So
Right.
they're more exposed. They're potentially health wise, they're not as prepared as they should be. That's something we need to fix going forward. And seeking that actual education is not just like I go read, but being surrounded by people that actually does that. I said it to you recently, like when I come around you guys, the things that we talk about, it's a different message, a different communication. So being around that, you will tell me is like, Keith, you're not looking good. You need to go get checked up. You know what I mean? Like we need to have more of that going. So there's it's multifactorial, but the good news is I think this is a wake up call for us. So what happened with COVID is a wake up call for us as a community, not just for the minority community, but as a community of us looking after each other, looking out for each other. So something we need to work on going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Because if for some reason, I don't know why our community sometimes is scared, or we lack to go to the doctor. We don't want to do the preventive work and make this, and we don't take it as serious as others do, and we have to change that mentality. It's all within the mindset, and I guess that's something that we can talk about too, Keith. Is just the mindset of people and how to what are a couple of things that we can do to change that mindset to allow people to realize that look, you need to get this preventive work. You need to know your body.
Absolutely, man. You know, one of the things. So mentorship, I think, is one of the biggest opportunities we have. Like
Yeah,
we need to, there is absolutely brilliant West Indians and other
yeah,
minorities, African
yeah,
Americans, and within the community, there's absolutely brilliant, individuals that has been exceptionally successful in many ways, not just financially. There's very strong voices within the communities. Like I've learned and met so many people over the last few weeks, that from Michelle, Liani, like there's so many
yeah,
people, Dr. Brown, there's so many people that are just absolutely brilliant. Um, if we seek and like get a way how to get these voices more out in the community, communicating the needs, not just for the community but for the individual, but at the same time it needs to be reciprocated. So if you have a platform right now, we're doing this, you know
yeah,
this is something that need to be attended. This is listening to individuals like you have these discussions is what I'm learning is very, very important. So it's a strong mindset that needs to be curbed,
yeah,
but at the same time there's people within the community that's already doing this, right? You're doing this, your brothers are doing this.
yeah.
You have a significant group around you that constantly does this. Whenever I come around, I feel that. So there's ways, there's people to look at, to emulate, and that's one of the things we need to work on. Or mentorship within the community, I don't think is strong enough. We
Yeah.
need to work on that.
I agree with that, man. I think the more we see our brothers and our sisters actually encouraging us to do medical things or preventive work for ourselves, I think there would be a ease of heart about it, or a different mentality in terms of developing this kind of concept and idea of take care of yourself.
Yep.
Not only are we supposed to take care of ourselves spiritually, but physically
Yep.
and emotionally, and making sure that it's all right to go to the doctor. It's all right to get yourself checked out. Even, we have to make sure that everybody's up on their insurance plans and make sure that they're doing whatever it takes because your life is so important. But in terms of, let's talk about infectious diseases because a lot of people do not understand that. So you kind of give us a breakdown of what's going on. We heard that Corona was made in the lab. How true is that in your perspective, and how do we go from there?
I don't know if this is a time to focus on that, to be honest with you. I
Yeah,
think it's possible. I mean, it's why not, right? It is possible. It's very possible. It's possible that it wasn't. But
right,
regardless, it's here, and it is definitely quite possibly one of the most persistent virus we've seen in our lifetime by miles, right?
right,
I'll tell you the smarts of the COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 virus. If the virus itself, if I got it tomorrow and I died the minute I got it, or days after, it prevents me, or I'm non-functional, so I can't come to work and so forth. And
right, right,
then what it does, that prevents me from potentially spreading it. So I stay at home, I'm in bed, and that's not what it does. So in some studies, about 80% of individuals have mild to moderate symptoms, which means they can walk around and just spread it. That's probably one of the most brilliant concept of virology and viral spreading and transmissibility that we've seen in a long time. And then
yeah,
you have these individuals under some spectrum that they get the disease. So I am a very good vector. Generally, you're most likely a very good vector as well. You'll get the disease. You'll do very, very well. You'll get exposed to our grandparents and so forth. And the grandparent might not have the capability of managing it like I have. And
right,
right. So I think from an infectious disease perspective, and the question as to whether or not it's man-made or not, it's
yeah,
quite possible, but I don't
right,
think that's the intricacy of that is not. That's not what's important. Is the fact that how it operates. is unique in that some individuals have the capability of being just excellent vectors and they pass it on to weaker individuals who eventually die, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now, is this something that we've seen before? Um, to some extent. I mean, flu is very close to SARS-CoV-2. Remember, many people get the flu during the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Not many people die, but some people get the flu. In fact, if you hear that someone died from the flu, you'd be like, "What? No."
Right.
Um,
Right. Right. Right.
exactly. It's the same kind of concept, except the mortality on it, you intensity of it, you multiply it significantly, and you get SARS-CoV-2.
Oh, that's good. That's good, man. So, in terms of how we should keep ourselves healthy.
Yeah.
So you talked about, the stronger individuals
Yeah.
versus the weaker ones. How can we do that, and what kind of things should we be doing in terms of staying ahead of the game?
Exercise. I know we don't want to hear that, but it's exercise is huge. Exercise is huge. Regular checkups are huge. Understanding your baselines are huge. So your cholesterol level, knowing what your blood pressure is. Keep in mind there's a standard blood pressure that's what's normal, right? So you have your normal blood pressure, and then what your base, like everyone needs to be at this. So 120s, your 60s, like that's
Yeah,
people 120 to 120 over 60, like that's kind of what people
yeah,
go.
yeah,
However, there's individuals that will run low all the time. So I've had individuals that are 100 over 50, 100 over 55, or whatever the case is. So any deviation from that, if I see them tomorrow morning and they're like 120 over 670, that's an
yeah,
increase, right?
yeah.
Though it's not too far from the normal, their normal is different from the average normal. You know what I mean?
Right,
Keep in
right.
mind, the average normal is coming from a population that's not only African American. It's a wider, different group of people, right?
Yeah,
So establishing your own normal within your provider set with your provider is helps us as providers. If something, even if you look normal, but by numbers, it's different from what your normal is. We can start acting really quickly. So I think having an established relationship with your providers, exercise definitely, eat right, and manage stress.
yeah,
Stress management is key. And if you look at this disease process, a lot of individuals have relied on other people to help manage their stress, which is a good thing. Relying on your community is very, very good resources in your community. But we've seen so much a significant increase in mental health issues throughout this, right? So,
yeah.
and
So,
there's going to be
why you think that's from stress in terms of the mental issues, or?
well, stress, and you don't have that. I can't stop by your house like readily and be like, dude,
Yeah,
this is bothering me. It's a big difference. We're used to having that. We're used to having, and as men, we don't really say this is bothering me. We say,
right,
oh, I have a friend that's going through this thing.
right, right.
What do you think, right? That's kind of
Okay.
what do you think? How should I tell my friend to do?
How should I tell them?
What should I tell them, right?
Right,
So I get that all the time. So and
right.
we don't have that readily accessible. So that's one of the things where stress is concerned. The other piece of it, financial stress is a real thing. A lot of people lost jobs. A lot of people, 40 million Americans are late on mortgage or rent right now. It's 40 million Americans. So 25%. Am I wrong? A little bit less than 25, but 22%. So 40 million Americans that are late on rent or mortgage right now. And as
Wow.
soon as their stimulus is going through,
Yeah,
uh, but
yeah,
a lot of people are going to probably lose their house. So there's a lot of stress in the community right now. Of over 500,000 individual, 550, almost 550,000 Americans have died. Huge proportion of that is minorities and African Americans. So there's communities that have lost historians,
yeah,
caregivers, matriarchs, patriarchs. There's significant piece of communities that are taken away. And the worst part about this too, if it couldn't get worse, the fact that we haven't been able to celebrate in our way of celebrating life with people, right? People pass away and we have this celebration, and it's a huge thing. Family get together and appreciate people's life. We haven't been able to do that. So there's
yeah.
limitation on funerals and so forth. So it's stressful. This whole thing is
Yeah.
stressful.
And I'm seeing too, even in young people, like with them not being able to go to school, with them not being able to
Yeah,
socialize, that it's playing a major part on our younger community.
yeah,
And I'm concerned about, in terms of once, they get out, how they're going to handle each other and get back into the swing of things. It
yeah.
seems like a huge depression is on a lot of youth right now.
It's true, man. There's such significant increase in obesity, and I know someone that's a huge part of an obesity clinic in Connecticut,
Yeah,
and I talked recently, and they're like, there's such an increase in the amount of kids that have
yeah,
hit that threshold of obesity, and they're
yeah,
talking now. So there's a lot of things. Listen, there's a community. Um, I'm pretty sure. I think it's in not Detroit, in Chicago, community in Chicago that has not heard from, but 900 kids from the day school closed still now. They haven't heard from them.
wow,
Just lost to the system, right? These are kids
wow,
that are in school. There's communities in Hartford, Connecticut that hasn't heard from. So now in Hartford, what I think what they're doing, and at least what I know what they're doing, I've been told what they're doing is they're doing wellness check on these kids. But
yeah,
they're, the impact on this is
yeah,
significant. And then think about those parents, right? So now the kids are home. Parents rely on the school system as not daycare per se, but it's a functional part of the society. Kids go
yeah,
to
yeah,
school, go to work. That's not happening. So when you talk about stress, increase in stress, some
yeah.
parents can't do that anymore. So now they're staying home. That's a loss of wages. The impact on this is significant, and worse, I can't stop by and tell you about my friend who's stressed, right? So,
Right, right.
so
Right. So, how important do you think therapy is, or having life coaches, or
huge,
um, in terms of getting our community better?
huge, man. Like I got a therapist 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Definitely one of the best things happened to me. My relationship with myself and my wife, who we've been together for forever, it seems. But and a lot of it, we don't. This is something we don't really do much of. I don't think
Yeah,
we don't want to really talk about, because I'm tough, right? So when I
you're
talk
right. I don't need nobody.
about, I got this. But no, man, therapy and mentorship is key,
Yeah,
because like I have a good relationship with my therapist and stuff, and then she'll basic stuff like she'll tell me, she'll call me and she's like, hey, I know a lot of things going on right now in the community about you know when George Floyd thing was going on, and she's like, I don't know how is this affecting you, kind of thing. And I didn't I didn't even know it was affecting me that much, and next
right.
thing you know, we're talking about it. So it's good to have that relationship, and it doesn't need to be like a formal process, but having someone that can like
Yeah,
literally just walk in through that process, say, hey,
yeah, yeah.
this is the right thing to do. What you're thinking isn't crazy, because sometimes you'll think about it and be like, yeah, that's crazy, but they're like, nah, I'm thinking the same thing. So therapy's good.
Oh, that's true. And I'm a big promoter of that. I also have a therapist, get a chance to talk to him. And I mean, I think everybody needs somebody that they can I don't want to say dump on, but almost, release what you're going through, or what's on your mind, in order to get feedback. Even if you have strong mentors, and you almost need a person who is
Exactly. Yeah.
is level-minded, who can, kind of give you different perspectives in terms of life. So please, we encourage you to make sure that you're getting a therapist. Make sure that you're staying healthy, exercising, eating right, making sure that you have a life plan of becoming stronger and better, and a life plan to make sure that your life is going to enhance in the proper way. And that's not only spiritually, but
Yeah.
that's physically and mentally,
Absolutely.
to be a balanced person. But there was a question that came across, and I'll put it on the screen. It says, how can a person repair their DNA to stay immune from COVID-19?
So repairing the DNA is like, I think that's a very challenging question, like for a lot of reasons. I wouldn't go to, I think for immunity perspective, the two things that we do know is exposure to the actual virus itself creates a natural immunity or some form of natural immunity. Wherein once you're exposed to a virus, which is a really cool process actually. So once you get exposed to a virus, what happens is there's a learning process your body goes through, and what it does with that learning, it creates antibodies. So I get exposed to a virus. Your body creates the antibodies, and the antibodies sit dormant until the virus comes back in. So if the virus ever comes back, those antibodies are ready to attack it, right? And that's your immunity. So that's how your immune system works. Now, the next way is to have a more different kind of immunity development or antibody development, such as with immunizations and vaccinations. So, for example, chickenpox, like we don't really hear about it that much because of a lot of immunity with the chickenpox vaccine that's been given since decades now, right? Same thing with COVID-19. Once you get it, but with the DNA itself, the changing of DNA is it's very complicated, very complex. It's not needed for actual immune development for immunity from COVID-19.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Uh, we we have some guests that's trying to come in. I'm trying to get them in on the back end. I don't know why.
But one of the things that you said before, and you talk about, stay spiritually inclined, get a therapist, and we talked about proper nutrition and exercise and so forth. When you figure it out, and this is key. So when you figure that out and you think you're going on a right path, um, if you want to put something on social media, put that on there. Like that's something that you should teach people how to be better at. And every time someone figures it out, teach people. I have a good friend of mine that I went to school with. His name's Al, and very successful guy. And every journey in his success, not someone that brags about it, but you could see he tried to drag people with him. Like he constantly say, "Hey, I figured this thing out. There's a way for you to, get financing to get this house, and there's a way. I'm not. There's no benefit for me. But whenever you figure these thing out, it's for us to tell the community. I think we have this. There's some mindset that still lingers that there's a single pie, and if I take a piece, and if you come and take a piece, then there's less for me. That doesn't make sense. So we need to figure out how to, every time we find a way to uplift ourselves clinically, physically, mentally, it's protecting us. But then when we pass it on, it's protecting the next person, and in turn, it's protecting the community. So that's a good thing.
No, that's a great thing. I don't know what's going on with my system. We keep going in and out. But I'm trying to get our other guests on because I really want them to talk about even what you're talking about because they have some resources in terms of what people can use can use in order to enhance their lives and even going through this whole pandemic. We do have another question though. It says, "What are the mRNA vaccines and can they alter your DNA?"
So that's a pretty good question. So mRNA vaccines is actually a very interesting technology, which I think we're going to hear a lot about in the future. I don't think the science community has the opportunity really right now to celebrate what that really means. And I'll tell you why it's important. So the mRNA vaccine, the M is the important piece, right? So the M is the message. So what it does basically, a message is scripted, and in this point, the message is a sequence that creates the spike protein. The spike protein is important. So when you look at that picture of the COVID-19 virus, there's spikes that come off it. When the virus interacts with a cell, the spike is where the interaction happens. So that's very, very important. So what the mRNA does, it goes in and it tells the body to create the spike protein, not the virus, just the spike protein. The spike protein is created. The minute it's created, antibodies start creating. Because remember, whenever your body interacts with a virus, creates antibodies. So the interaction with the virus is the spike protein. Spike protein is created by your cells. That set of spike protein elicit a creation of antibodies, right, and so forth. The question about DNA. There's no interaction with the mRNA and DNA. In fact, mRNA vaccine is one of the simplest vaccines ever to be created for a number of reasons. The content of that vial is water, sucrose, and the actual mRNA itself to stabilize and stabilizers, some FDA approved stabilizers. That's it. There's no antibiotics that's added to it. Some vaccines have antibiotics that are added. There's no adjuvant that's added to it as well. There's no preservative that's added to it as well. So that's very key things. There's no egg or derivatives. There's a lot of vaccines that have egg derivatives as well. There's no interaction with the DNA. It's cleared really quickly. So mRNA is pretty cool. And I tell you another reason why I talk about mRNA a lot, because I do believe if we ever face another pandemic, with the mRNA technology, we'll be able to have a vaccine within weeks. I strongly
Wow.
believe that. Strongly,
Wow.
strongly believe that. Yep. Because all you're changing now is the M, right? So you can use the same platform to deliver that message. Like you just need to change what what it is that the body will recognize when it interacts with a virus. That's all you need to identify. So once you identify that single sequence, you could tell the body, I just need you to create the sequence, not the virus, just the sequence, and then the body will start creating its antibodies. So
That's amazing. And it's amazing how technology is changing. What else do you see in the world of technology that may help with our health?
one of the key things I think we've learned from this more than anything else is collaborative efforts, and it's technology in a way that we have to. One of the greatest technologies we have is the means to communicate, right? So
Right.
the fact that we're doing this right now, so that's enormous, right? So we can, I can get into a lecture room and talk to the people who are privileged to be in that room, or we
Yep.
can jump on this and we could do this, and everyone could be privy to this, right? There's no qualifications, there's no criteria, it's
Yep.
available, you can see it. So I think that's probably one of the biggest technologies we have, the collaborative effort of communication and the use of existing technologies to spread the message, so to speak. But in regards to like over like cool technologies coming down, there's predictive analytics are key.
Yeah.
Any kids that's looking into for mentors or mentorship and they're asking me what they should look at next, predictive analytics is going to be key coming down. So one of the things that we'll be able to do is, for example, there's certain criterias that, and this is in existent now. So MIT actually has a really cool model that we've worked with them for, and based on this model, I can tell, for example, just to say someone's coming in the hospital and their chances of just by you coming in, and there's some criteria that we look at, your chance of survival. If I do this, what's your approximate chance of this happening? If I do simple things, if I ask you to change this in your life, how much longer you're going to live? Like just simple things. So predictive
Yeah.
analytics is on a different scale. I mean, it looks at, there's models now that are looking at million of different elements. So if I tell Leroy that he wakes up at 5 versus 6, how long will you live? Like there's analytics now
Yeah.
that's giving that opportunity.
Wow. Wow. Now, I think that's important too to talk about too, in terms of even our community and a lot of us. We don't sleep well, and how important is rest in all of this. And,
I can't be a hypocrite on this, man. I don't sleep now. So probably like I'll probably go to bed at between 12 and 2,
wow.
and I'm up at around 5, between 5 and 6 every
Yeah.
morning. And for me, it's fine. Like I feel fine with it. But I can tell you, if I lay down with my son, so he's 1 right now, and if I lay down with him, he goes to bed at around 6:37. Like I'll fall asleep and I'll sleep all the way through, and I'll wake up at like 11 and then work until like 3, right?
Yeah.
If I happen to sleep all the way through, wake up at 11 and decide I'm going back to sleep, I feel so much better, so much different, right? So dude, in order for your cells to repair, so throughout the day, things happen and stress and interaction and all that stuff. So in order for your cell to really repair, you need to put your body at rest. You really need to sleep, and it's real sleep. So you need to get to, it's called REM sleep. So you need to get to that point in order for you to really appreciate sleep. So sleeping is significantly important, and there's so much talks about sleep and the medicine of sleep and the medicine around sleep and aging and sleep. There's so much. It's significant.
Wow. So there was another question came. It says from a senior. It says, please give suggestions to help somebody recovery from COVID.
From COVID. So like one of the things we're seeing right now, and we've over the last few months we've appreciated that, is the fact that a number of people who will go through COVID and after COVID they'll have a number of symptoms, right? So there's a number of institutions that come up with it. We have one of those institutions that is dealing just with patients with long-term effects from COVID. And it depends on what effect you do still have. So some people still have difficulty breathing, difficulty exercising, they get winded and so forth. I would say definitely reach out to your provider. If they're not being helpful, feel free to reach out to me. I can get you to someone that's really good, or institutions that are very, very good with this. But it depends on what your specific symptoms is. I've heard joint pains, fever. I've heard headaches as a huge one. Tiredness, individuals being very, very tired. But it depends on what specific symptoms you have, and then specific plan would have to be built around you in order to get you in the right direction. That's another thing that's huge now, right? It's individualized care. So individualized care. There's a time when you'd go to the doctor. We talked a little bit about this before when we talked about the blood pressure and the fact that one blood pressure doesn't fit every person, right? But individualized care is key. So you come in. There's a time you come in and you say, okay, I have a headache, but a headache is not my headache, and your headache are completely different. So how you treat a headache is different. Our treatment is should be completely different. So I would say the specific, we would have to specify as to what is it that's still bothering you, and then we'd put a plan together in order to mitigate that. There's a number of ways to approach it, but um, there's a lot of services out there right now.
So is it true that when you take the vaccine, that they are actually putting the virus in you?
No, it's not even kind of close of true. Not even like kind of close. So if you look at the virus, right? So you have this big thing. So if you look at this, when you put to the picture, you see this big thing, and there's all these spikes that's coming off it, right? So
Right.
the primary viability of the virus is what's in here, right? All the
Yes.
spike things is the thing that makes the virus like sticky and stick onto something, and it gives it the ability to easily grab onto like the mucosal layers in your airway and mouth. So, when you inhale it, it sticks onto the ears and stuff. That's the sticky thing. That's what it does. That's what it's made to do. That's a spike protein. So that's that little spike. That's literally all it's in the actual vaccines. That's all. So it's not the actual virus, it's a spike protein. So it's a specific spike protein that exists on the COVID-19 virus. And the reason why that's all we need is the body's reaction to that and antibody that it creates, because that's all we need to block, right? We just need to
Right.
prevent this actual attachment from happening. So now it can't replicate and nothing can happen with it. So it's gone. So that's all we care about. So yeah.
Well, that's good to know, because I know a lot of people is concerned. They was like, "Well, I don't want them putting that virus in me." And then they was talking about how all the myths that's going on in terms of possible other items that they're putting into your body. I don't know if you can talk about those myths and how to cancel those a little bit.
There's a lot, man. Like, and if you look at, you got to think about it this way, right? So how many people have gotten the vaccine so far? Millions. So
Right.
I'm in millions, 80, 90 million, right? People gotten the vaccine so far. If you look at what the vaccine trials look at, so if you look at the three trials, right? So Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson and Johnson. So about 100,000+ people. So it says this percentage of people will have this symptoms of side effects.
Right.
And then you say, okay, from an FDA perspective, from a clinical perspective, being a part of the scientific advisory group to the governor, or my job is to say what the FDA, what the document that Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson provided to the FDA. We read through it. We agree it's safe, and we agree it's effective, and we should get it for the citizens of Connecticut. That's our role. And now the next thing I get to do is, the minute it start getting administered, I have real world now. So I have a trial and I have real world data, right? So from the real world data, the things that I need to focus on, does the real world data matches with the trial data? And I'm concerned with that because you have vaccine medications that have come out, and like after like a month, or even after the first week if it been out, you're like, people are having more side effects than was reported, right? So if you
Yeah.
look at millions of people who's gotten the vaccine so far, and 100,000 people that are in the initial trial, the vaccine is still very, very safe, hasn't deviated from the trial, is very consistent with the trial, the data we've had, and it's very effective in that it's reduced significant mortality, and it's reduced admissions to the hospital, and it's saving lives. Like, that's happening. So you have your lab data, which we have to trust before we bring it into the real world, and now we have real world data, and that real world data is showing a significant effectiveness. And again, I said we're gonna talk and come right back to this. There's individuals that are using private jets to fly to places to get this vaccine.
And that's something.
I every time I talk about it, when people talk, we're hesitancy and concern. You gotta think about this in perspective.
Yeah,
Like people paying a lot of money. Like I get phone calls on a daily basis from people from everywhere because they know obviously we have access to the vaccine, and it's how do I get my very very wealthy mom the
right,
vaccine?
right, right.
People will say that because they
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. So there's the rich and famous is already vaccinated or they're working on it.
yeah.
Um, we should. It's. I don't think it's a bad thing.
So there's one more question that came across. It says, are the existing COVID-19 vaccines effective against COVID-19 variants circulating? Also,
Yeah.
how many variants are circulating?
Yeah. So the whole how many variants are circulating? If I tell you, would freak you out. So let's not even answer that.
Let's not go there,
Yeah.
right?
It's viruses they mutate a lot. So
Yeah.
variances for COVID-19, you're looking at like thousands of variants that are circulating. Predominant variants that's circulating has been around for a good while. It's been around obviously since COVID-19 was initially discovered. The other
Yeah.
two variances three variances that we're overly concerned about is B.1.1.7, which is the UK variant. I'm not a huge fan of saying UK variants. It's like saying the
Yeah.
Chinese flu
Yeah.
kind of thing, China flu. Not a huge fan of it. It originated in the UK. And the next variant is B.1.351. It originated in South Africa. And then there's P1, P2, once originated in Brazil. So the one that we're overly concerned about is 1.351. The reason why is 1.351 seemed to have the greatest resistance to vaccine and antibody so far. They're still effective. The vaccine is still effective, but B.1.351 is the most resilient. It's like that little brother that just doesn't listen. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's
He's stubborn, right?
I know, right? I know you'd relate to that. So, so if so far in the state of Connecticut, we haven't seen a lot of B.1.351, especially in the clinical setting. So we've seen it from a surveillance perspective. Jack's lab, the DPH, or the City Lab or DPH lab is also doing sequencing, so we're able to tell which strain or variant it is. So we haven't seen enough that I can say it's epidemiologically significant. So basically, I don't see enough for it to be shifting this whole thing. It's not
Yeah.
going to derail our plans right now. But yeah, 1.351 is what I am most concerned about right now. One B.1.1.7, I'm not overly concerned because the vaccines are effective against it, really effective, and antibodies are very effective against it as well. Also, not very. The only thing about it I'm a little bit concerned about is from a modeling perspective, they were able to create models that show that it could be 20 to 70% more contagious. So that part I'm very concerned about. The good thing about it is that it being more contagious doesn't defray from the fact that if you have your mask and your social distance and physical distance in place, you're still good. So if you do exactly the same thing, and I've said this many times, less focus on the variances, more focus on what you need to do to prevent you from getting COVID-19. So I don't care what variants come out,
Yeah.
you do these things, you're fine.
Quick question. Somebody asked, will we have to take the vaccine like we take the flu shot every year?
Dude, you guys have good questions. All right.
That's a good question.
So
Yeah.
there's a bet going on in the clinical community. And it's a bet because there's no way to really tell right now, right? So what we need in order to dictate or to tell this is time. So we would need a year amount of time to say, yes, it lasts for a year. We haven't had that, right? So the first person that got first set of person that had the vaccines about late July, early August, so around there. These individuals still have, so what we use and we track is antibody, right? So these individuals still have sustained antibodies. So we're comfortable that more than a few months. So it's definitely more than a few months. So we know that for sure, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm saying based on how the antibodies are created, with how these vaccines are created and how the antibodies are elicited in your body, my thing is saying no. I don't think that we will need to get a booster more for at least the next 24 months. My chief is saying he's less inclined for 24 months. He thinks about 18 months, 16 to 18 months, that we will see tapering off of the antibodies. I think if we get a reprieve for about 18 to 24 months, it will put us in a very, very good place. I'm hoping that I'm more right than he is, and because I said 2 to 5 years,
Yeah.
um, he's saying no, 2 to 3 years, and probably 18 months to 2.5 years. So we'll see.
Wow, great question. We were able to get our second guest on. I'm gonna bring her on. This is Dr. Mann. We're so glad to finally get you on. I don't know what kind of technical problems we were having. I know your partner's
Oh,
out there somewhere.
actually, they're texting me right now, like they're going back and forth, and I'm not sure if our supervisor, Reverend Robin Anderson,
Okay.
from the Ministerial Health Fellowship, she might be actually possibly waiting in the background as well.
Yeah.
So I do know that we are certainly having some technical difficulties. I'm not sure what I hit, to be honest, because I tried for about 15 minutes, but I'm finally in. So
So tell us. Yeah,
my
no
apologies, because I
problem.
really was supposed to be with my team today doing this presentation, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to represent them because of the technical difficulties that we're having.
Yeah. So tell
So
us a
let me
little
say,
about your organization and how you can help people in terms of resources with
mhm.
COVID.
Okay. So thank you, Pastor Bailey, and also good afternoon to
You doing?
Keith Grant. I
All
think
right.
he's familiar to us with the program here. But I
Absolutely.
just want to say that we're COVID-19 crisis counselors here in the Greater Hartford community area under the leadership of Ministerial Health Fellowship Advocacy Coalition, where we serve here in the Greater Hartford community area. Our team leader, our supervisor is Reverend Robin Anderson, where she leads the COVID-19 crisis counselors. And I believe there's at least 11 of us who are dispatched in different locations in the Greater Hartford community area. The Ministerial Health Fellowship addresses systematic barriers to Black communities' access to care with integrated faith-based healthcare advocacy network. We are definitely a faith-based network where we're going into the communities trying to make a difference in the Black and Brown and the Latino communities, Latinx communities. We convene Black faith leaders monthly to promote discussion about congregation issues, um, as well as healthcare access and community advocacy. We engage with faith-based leaders and their communities in expanding efforts to influence healthcare policy. We organize community conversations about crisis. This is what the COVID counselors do with key stakeholders, police officers, emergency responders, and family members. Our key goal is to get out into the community to see what is needed for the help for the people. That is really the COVID-19 crisis counselor's duty, is to um, actually help in any capacity with the resources that we have right now in the pandemic, to see how they are doing. How are they handling the crisis during this time? What are their needs? And we realize that there's a need for mostly everyone out there right now, for those who are suffering in the pandemic. We have people who have loss of jobs, income, health, you name it. They're back on their rent, all sorts of things. When we begin to actually communicate and actually interview a lot of people within the community, we learn more about what is needed, right? So in the faith-based community, in the churches, like we're communing together today, we meet with people out here on the regular basis or by phone to hear the needs. The problem is, I think we're not getting enough information out there in the Black and Brown communities to get the help that the people really need.
Yeah,
So
we were talking about that earlier in terms of making sure that we have mentors and getting the word out to our communities and make sure that we are a resource to them. What type of resources as a counselor? What type of resources can you give to um, individuals or people in our communities?
well, it depends on the nature of their situation, but we can give resources from mental health, from food. We look for organizations or churches that have food banks, food shares that we can actually send our people within the community to. We have CRT. These are people who can help with their lights, their gas. We have the state of Connecticut, the bill that just passed regarding for those who cannot afford or they're backed up on their rent. We send them to 211. There are so many resources that are available to the people. So it depends on the nature of their need. So there's multiple resources available to the people. So our problem at this point is to get to the people. You know what I'm saying? To get to the people so we can help them with the resources that are available. And it's really a two-way street as well. For those organizations and churches, they may have some resources that could be available to us that we can help the people with. So that's really the key thing here. Yes, and it's faith-based as well.
Absolutely. So how can people get in contact with your organization or to get counseling and resolve some of their issues?
Well, they can certainly reach out. It's unfortunately you don't have our slide, but I can actually. Would you like for me to say it?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Absolutely. I'm going to give a shout out to Reverend Robin Anderson, just in case. She is my supervisor, and she's over the COVID-19 crisis program. Akila Barr, who is one of my team members as well. And let me give you my phone number. I can be reached at area code. My name again is Apostle Yvette Mann. I can be reached at area code 860-808-6185. And Akila Barr, who's my partner, she can be reached at area code 860-808-6051. And we also have a third partner who her name is Brenda Pina, and she works in the Latinx community in the Greater Hartford capacity. She's actually stretched on all the regions in the Greater Hartford, Connecticut. She's down in, so she's learning all of the locations. So we've been teaming up together in the Latinx community. So her name is Brenda Pina, and her phone number is 860-808, and I believe it's 1081, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, great. So we will hope that anyone who's listening or know anybody.
Did that sound go out?
No, we still here. So anyone who's listening and need resources, that you can give them a call and make sure that we're helping people and getting this information out to our community, and make sure that we're getting stronger and better together as one. I do want to go back to Dr. Grant because there was a question that came up for you that says, what if someone does not take the vaccine, will the virus ever leave? I think you're muted. And you muted yourself. Keith. Keith just muted himself. Hold on one second.
There we go.
All right, there we go.
So we could. So the short answer, we definitely could. And we've seen this before with the last pandemic we've been a part of. We obviously didn't have a vaccine for that, and we came through it. And how could we? Because remember, we talked about two different ways of getting immunity. So one way is just being exposed. There's some communities that have data that shows about 40 to 50% of the individuals being exposed, so have some form of antibody that will protect them for some period of time. At this point, we're believing that these antibodies will only last for about 3 months. In some studies, 3 to 6 months. How does the vaccine, and by answering the question that way, why do I think the vaccine will help? So the vaccine itself is the only measurable. So from an antibody perspective, we know how effective it is based on data science. And we also know the safety of it, and we have control of how to actually disseminate it. So that's important. So if you couple that with the individuals, the 40% of individuals, or like generally, say 20 to 30% of individuals generally who's been exposed, I think put us in a much better position. But could we go past it completely without the vaccine? I think we could, but it's going to take a much longer time than it would otherwise.
That's great. There was another question that came across, and I believe any one of you can answer. It says, how can the shut-ins get a vaccine?
So we have a home vaccination service. I'm pretty sure that's not what it's called. So we have a service that give vaccines to individuals at home. If that person has someone that they want to, they can reach out to me and I can set that up. So.
Okay, good. Next question was, do we have a choice on if we take the one with 2 doses versus the one with Johnson & Johnson, if we have a preference on which one we want?
Yeah, so all the health systems are doing, at least I know Yale and Hartford are doing that you get to choose. Surprisingly, a lot of people are choosing Johnson & Johnson just because it's a single dose. And it's working out pretty well. But yeah, so you have a choice which one you take. I think what I've said so far is the best vaccine is vaccine that's available for what we want it to do, right? So we want the vaccines. We want people to stop dying or stop ending up in the hospital in critical care. All the vaccines do that right now. The vaccines that are out right now. I do think if you look at the vaccines that are upcoming, I do still believe the vaccines we have now are the better off the batch that's coming. And I will still say that when they're here. So I do think so for a number of reasons.
Great. So we're down to our last few minutes, you guys, and I just want to give each one of you an opportunity just to give us some kind of closing words and tell us your thoughts on where we are and where we need to go and where we need to be.
So I'll start, and then because I think Dr. Yvette Mann has, so the resources that's needed, and we talked about all this, and I think it's good that she came on in the last part. And the reason why I say that is because there's so much that we talked about that people are suffering from, and we talked about identifying your resources and using your resources. And I do know off the program, I was privy to have some conversation with someone about it. But there's so much that this group has to offer. So please feel free to reach out to Dr. Yvette and her group and identify those resources. Use the resources, man. Please, people, use your resources. Get educated. Before I say get vaccinated, get educated about it. Advocate for what's the right thing and educate each other. So that's all I got.
Dr. Yvette?
Yes, can you hear me? Because the sound is not too good on my end. I'm not sure if it's...
we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Now, what was the question? I'm sorry, because I didn't really hear.
Oh, no, just in terms of, these are our final words, in terms of, where we are and maybe the resources that you have. Again, we just put your number into the feed, letting people know to contact you. And, what do we need to do as a community to stay informed?
Well, first of all, I just put all of our phone numbers inside the chat for 3 of us, myself, Akila Barr, and Brenda Pina. She is the person for the Latinx community. So that's one way that they can reach us directly. For any questions or concerns, my apologies, because we really didn't have time enough for a slide, as we discussed. But our main focus at this point, Pastor, is to reach as many people as we can in the Black and Brown communities to make them more aware of how to protect themselves while they're in the pandemic, help them with resources while they're in the pandemic. And even we realize that Dr. Keith Grant is on here today to talk about the vaccine and how it is, it's people's preference or choice at this point in time. But I've talked with a lot of people who have taken the vaccine thus far, which is a plus. I've taken a vaccine. I've got my first, so I got another few weeks or so before I take my next one. No issues, no problems on my end from the vaccine. So Good job. So let me be an advocate because I got my vaccine shot. So I think for me down the road, it's probably going to become a necessity for people to move forward in their jobs, travel, and things of that nature. So most importantly, I just think my personal preference to protect yourself as well as the environment that you're in, the atmosphere. I think we all should just think to be safe, because this pandemic has went on for 1 year now, right? So it's starting to slow down just a little bit, and it's slowing down because of the vaccine, right? And it's making people more aware that this thing is not a joke. It's real. We've lost too many people, right? And it went on for way too long. We don't really know how long COVID is going to last, but hopefully this vaccine will help us bring these numbers completely down to zero. And as we move forward to get, first of all, let me say this, so we can heal, because basically the church, the people, the body, everybody has been affected by COVID one way or another. Our lives have transformed, they've changed. We're all living differently at this point in time. Whether you like it or not, you are. You got to go out with a mask everywhere you go. I want to go to an island. You want me to tell me the truth? I'm ready for vacation. I had to throw a joke in there because I really am. I want to go somewhere where it's nice and sunny, where I don't have to worry about being contaminated with COVID-19, But just to bring a little humor in there, this is the truth. I think most people feel like this. They're ready to come out of isolation.
Yeah.
Many people have been isolated, Yeah. They're scared. Some people are really fearful of this pandemic. They really are.
Yeah.
But I will say this, life goes on, It does. We got to heal through this plague and just let God lead the way, because that's where we are at this point in time. All of us are aware of what's going on. We just need to be more knowledgeable going forward with the vaccine.
Yeah.
And how we can speak to our people out here, because this is the problem. The issue is in our Black and brown community. More deaths is in the Black and brown communities. And we're hearing so many stories of why they don't want the vaccine. It's so much misinformation that's floating around out there. That's not true, right? But people are entitled to their opinion. But what you need to do, what they need to do is research the information.
That's true.
Right, Keith Grant, Dr. Grant?
We need to hang out more, man. You just need to, whenever I go anywhere, you should just talk with me. You're good at this thing.
I don't know about that, Dr. Grant.
No,
but just sharing my piece.
Please call me Keith. Please call me Keith. But yeah, come whenever. I'll send you my calendar. You just hang out. I'll hang out with you too.
I am so honored, Dr. Grant. Thank you so kindly. But just sharing my piece. And that's really it. And a shout out to Reverend Robin Anderson, who is the head. And perhaps she may be on this. Hopefully she was able to get on today, with the technical difficulties. Yeah. So shout out to her, because she leads a great team of crisis counselors. And plus she wears many hats, as everyone knows. So Thank you, Reverend Robinson, for all the work that you do for Ministry Health Fellowship.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so sorry we couldn't get her on. I'm not sure what's going on.
I am certainly, I'm sorry that I couldn't pull my coworkers in, because we were so excited to be a part of this platform today. And let me say thank you, Pastor Bailey, for allowing me, to come on for a few moments just to chat.
No problem. Thank you. And we don't want to prolong it. I try to keep this to an hour. And I just want to thank you both for coming and participate. Want to thank those who came on the show, also ask your questions. Please, you can always send me your questions, and I'll make sure that we can get some kind of answers, or hopefully we can get Keith back on the platform, and Dr. Yvette and her team, and so we can go a little further in here, because there are questions that's coming through, even about the side effects of vaccines and clinics for youth once it opens up in terms of 17 and over, and and what the media is saying about COVID, and these passports, and should we be, listening to that? So there are other topics that we need to discuss and going forward. So thank you. And I appreciate both of you, and I appreciate everyone who's joined us. Thank you. We are here every Thursday from 11 to 12. Next week, we're going to have a great conversation. I have a relationship couple that's going to be on here. So we're going to be talking about marriage, being single, and all this kind of good stuff. So you don't want to miss my friend Victor Stursky and his wife, who's going to be on here next week. So look forward to seeing you. Thank you, and be blessed. And remember to always make your life stronger and better. God bless you.
Thank you.
All right. God bless. Thank